Hello, friends. Welcome to the Achieve Your Goals podcast. I am your host, Hal Elrod. And someone wise once said, where there is no vision, people perish. Do you have a vision for your life that is pulling you forward, that gives you clarity over what you can control when you're being so overwhelmed and distracted with so many things that are out of your control? The vision for your life is what informs your current thinking, your focus, and your behavior that enables you to show up at your best every day. My guest today is Jennifer Hudye. She is the visionary behind Vision Driven, a company dedicated to helping individuals clarify, communicate, and connect to their next big vision for their life. And today she's going to break down 5 steps for you to do exactly that, including how to overcome your fears and insecurities and the unknown that holds you back from creating a vision and it keeps you stuck and struggling. Let's get unstuck. Let's stop struggling and creating a vision for your life that is so compelling that you're excited to wake up every day and make that vision a reality. Here we go. All right, Jennifer. So I want to start here. You just shared an intention with me before we got started. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I don't want to keep this intention from our listeners. So would you mind sharing with me whatever intention you just shared or whatever comes up for you now?
Yeah, I said I hold the vision and the intention that this podcast episode uh, serves and touches the people's hearts that really need to hear this message today, and that we just show up in full service and devotion to your listeners and to your audience, and that there's a flow to the conversation that's even better than either one of us could have dreamed up.
Mm,
So
love
all of
that.
that and something even better still.
I love that. You know,
Yeah.
when you shared that, as you were sharing it before we started recording, I went, "Oh, I do this for for every speech that I give, but I
Mhm.
don't do it before I record a podcast, I don't think." And so thank you for like reminding me of how, how important that is whenever I'm speaking to people, whether it's on a podcast or on a stage. But that's how I prepare for my message before I speak. I go, God, I don't know, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth during this message. So please fill me with the words and the energy and the love and the empathy and the humor and the solutions that these people or any individual in the audience need in this moment to serve their highest good. And so it was so similar to what you shared. And so yeah, thank you for
Mm.
setting that intention for me and you and everybody listening.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. So you and I have known each other for 10ish years. I mean, I remember when I had cancer in 2016, 2017. You and I were together with Alice Cooper and Joe Polish at a fundraiser that Alice Cooper was putting on. And we had met before that, but I remember that very distinctly because you and I actually spent a good amount of time, like we were talking and connecting the whole time. And we're not close friends like where we stay in touch, but it's one of those where you're like, oh, I know your soul and you know my soul. And so when we see each other, we reconnect quickly and easily. And most recently I saw you, we were both speaking at Giovanni Marsico's event, Destiny Fest.
Mhm.
And afterwards we got to then sit next to each other at dinner very intimately, like right side by side in a booth, in a bench, right? At the Well at our favorite restaurant. And I asked you to be on the podcast after we just talked, and I was reminded of who you are and how you show up and all the wisdom that you live with, that you embody. And here's what I want. I want to actually read our text message exchange. I texted you and I asked what you wanted to talk about. I said, "Hey, we'd be on the podcast." You said, "I would love to." I said, "What would you talk about? What are you most excited and passionate to talk about?" And I'm going to read your response word for word. You said, "I would love to share with your audience the power of having a spiritual vision that pulls you forward and how to begin to gain clarity on what it is. It's the message that I'm here to share in this world to remind people that they have self agency to design a life they love." And so, my
Mhm.
first question is, why is that the message that you feel like you're here to share in the world right now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. In 2019, I had a transcendent moment
Mm,
where I heard my higher power and whether you call it God, source, the infinite, whatever
Hmm.
resonates for me, I use God and that's what resonates. But
Yeah, me too.
I heard the message that told me that part of my assignment in this lifetime is to help people remember the importance of their spiritual vision. And it specifically, the message specifically said the world is going to go through a dark period of time where
Mm,
they're going to forget. And at that period in my life, I was actually already doing that work in the world. I was helping leaders to clarify and communicate their vivid vision. I partnered with Cameron Harold on Vivid Vision. Was working with and still am working with some of the top organizations in the world, the EO, YPO, um, some of the top companies, and I'd been living that to the certain degree. But when I heard that message, how there was like a knowing and a responsibility that I felt that was like, "Get moving."
mm,
And then 2020 happened,
mm.
and, the world shook up, and over the last, several years, I think every person, no globally has been feeling this, we're the fact that we're in one of the most profound transitions in human history.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we just look at it from a few different levels, technologically with the AI revolution, it's predicted right now that there will be over 300 jobs globally, either disrupted or transitioned over the next few years.
300 million,
Econo
right? You said 300. I
300
think you 300
million.
million. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that Goldman Sachs, I think, study. Yeah.
Yeah, economically, we're in a winter period where our world operates in cycles, and we are
Mhm.
in a winter cycle.
Yeah.
According, there's the fourth turning theory that talks about how we are in the fourth turning, which is the moment of crisis. We entered these periods of time about 80 to 90 years. The last time was the Great Depression.
Mm.
Um, and it's known as a total system upgrade and rebirth. Astrologically, right? Where we entered the stage of Aquarius, and it's said that we've entered this 20-year cycle that's all focused around technology, decentralization, new structures being built. The last time that we were in this was the American and French Revolution. Um, Many futurists predicted this moment in time that we're in right now, and so I think globally we're feeling it, but also people personally are feeling it, where this is a time that now more than ever, people are going through major transitions in their life and they're asking what's next and what's now. Like whether, Microsoft put out a stat that 75% of workers globally are rethinking their work and life right now.
Mm.
After 2020, 70% of people say that they feel stuck in their life and career. 1 in 3 Americans have gone through some sort of major life transition in the past 2 years. Like the point is, people are in this reckoning and rumbling right now.
Mhm.
And so then there's this natural kind of V point or threshold where a majority of people can't help but look at the future and feel fear and feel
Yeah.
uncertainty and feel a sense of anxiety around like, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my life? And so I'm really here to help people remember that the future can look like a big, beautiful canvas, and we can design it to a certain degree, and we can design it in a way that we love. But it requires awareness, waking up, and taking personal responsibility and self agency. So I feel like, this period of time, it's ripe with potential and helping people see that. I mean, like,
Mm.
if you look at the recession or excuse me, either the Great Depression or the recession, that was where the most millionaires were created in any time in history.
Yeah.
So helping people remember that this is
Mm.
actually a time of opportunity.
Mm. Everything that you just said, I actually noticed myself. I looked over at myself on the screen. I'm like, I'm nodding. Is this, it's funny, when you're on video, you're like, am I nodding too much? Am I like, but I like, it was unconscious where I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So many things that you shared. One is, I got those same messages or similar messages from God, like, and I have them in my journal. Like, Hal, the world is going through crisis. You're called to lead, as all of us are, I believe, right? So
Mhm.
I definitely resonate with that. You also shared so many things around like we're going through this transitionary period. You could call it a crisis period. technologically, economically, spiritually, right? In every category, in terms of mental health. I also relate on a personal level. I think it's a collective anxiety and fear that like the bomb was dropped in 2020, right? And everyone's like, "Oh," ever since then, it's just felt different. Like it
Mhm.
feels different. And what I'm reminded of in 2020 through prayer, I'm like, God, what message do I need to give to my audience right now, my listeners, my followers, Miracle Morning community? What message do I need to give them? And what came through for me is that right now everyone is focused on things that are out of their control, right? The pandemic, the unknown fallout, economics, you name it. And when we focus on that which is out of our control, we feel out of control. And when a human feels
Mhm.
out of control, that's the opposite of our primary need to feel safe, right? I don't feel safe. I am out of control and I don't know what's going to happen. And so I realized that my mission kind of was like, hey, get people to focus on the only things or thing they can control, which is themselves. It's how they show up each day, how they nurture themselves through self care, what they focus on, what they invest their time in, right? And just really focusing. And I think it's just this big picture, simple but big picture idea. Like when you focus on things that are out of your control, it doesn't serve you. You can't affect the things that are out of your control. So what can you control? And what I love that you're talking about, and I'd love to hear you, I want to elaborate on vision, the importance of it.
Yeah.
But like vision is something you get to control. Like you decide what your vision is, and that kind of creates your own reality. You're like, this is, yes, there's a gazillion things I could put my attention on that make me feel afraid and uncertain and scared, but I can create my own vision and start living into it. And I'd love to, two questions around this. One is the importance of vision. Why is it important? Like, what does that do for people? And then
Yeah.
number two, is not having a vision. Like, what are the consequences of that? So both sides of that
Mhm.
that vision coin.
Yeah. So first, let's define vision because I think, in some cases for people, it could feel like this ethereal thing that a
Mm,
lot of people talk about, but
yeah.
it doesn't feel tangible and real. And so, one of my favorite, actually, definitions recently heard from a dear friend of mine, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, which he said, your vision is simply just a psychological tool to help you
Mm,
make better decisions in the present moment
mm.
so that your present moment is set up to be more successful and better and what however you define it, more enriching, more healthy, etc. um and
I
the
love that.
vision
Just wrote
that
that down.
yeah, another in the vivid vision work we do, it's painting a clear, vivid picture of exactly what you want a period of time in the future to look and feel like as if it's already happened. It is your future story. So
Mm,
for the listeners right now, if I asked you about your life and you would probably tell me your story, but you'd be telling me the story of your past or maybe your current reality. And so the future is actually what is your story in the future that you want to be living? And, when it comes to the benefits of having a vision, well, there's modern research that has shown that um, we, as human beings, we operate again like in these systems and cycles, and the research has actually been able to show and prove that for the most part it can predict, measure people's life and past and then be able to predict what their future is going to look like as a result of their behaviors, actions, patterns from the past, which is pretty scary, like with a strong level of accuracy.
mm,
And that is because if we are creating our lives from default, meaning we don't have something in the future, a life in the future that is pulling us forward, then we're just going to create more of the same. We're going to drag our past into our future and it's going to look the same.
mm,
And so a vision, it's like, okay, I have this blueprint of what I want my future to look like. Well, now I can start making decisions in my present tense based on that vision and then completely change my reality, whether that's, your health, whether that's your relationships, whether that's your career and your income. But it starts with knowing where you're going. There's the saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will do.
Mm,
Um, and also creating alignment and focus, around what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think you brought up the mental health crisis, and I think there's like this crisis of meaning
mm,
right now in our society, and I think it's only going to increase with AI, where people are craving meaning and purpose in their life, and I think that stems from building something that's bigger than ourselves. Um, and and then a vision, I mean, another benefit is a vision is something that pulls you forward no matter the situation, circumstance, or challenge that's
yeah.
in front of you right now. And if we don't have that, then it's so easy for us to just loop into thinking that things are going to go from bad to worse. And I've been there before
Yeah.
many
Sure.
times.
Yeah. The what you talked about, Ben Hardy, that your vision is a psychological tool, right? It's almost like a strategy to enhance your mental health in the moment, your emotional well-being, your productivity, right? But what comes up for me, and I want to hear your opinion on this, is I'm like, well, what? Yeah, I think what prevents people from creating a vision for their future, and you could say this is true for also setting goals, which is, similar to a vision,
Mhm.
um, is fear of failure, right? It's like, well, I'm not gonna create a vision for the future because the future feels really, or fear of the unknown. It feels very uncertain. And so what's the point of creating a vision if I don't know if I can actually achieve that vision? But like from Ben's perspective and what you're talking about as an expert in this world is like, well, yeah, but no, it helps you feel better and do better in the moment.
Mhm.
And none of us can control the future. None of us can control the economy or World War III or well, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can only control, again, back to ourselves, what we do in the moment, how we think, how we feel. So I would love to hear your thoughts on, do you think fear of failure or fear of the unknown or both and something else prevents people from creating that vision for the future?
Yes, 100%. I think that there's several blocks that I've seen and just kind of pa- patterns that I've seen emerge both
Mm,
in myself and all of the people that I've worked with, and one of those is the fear of
mm,
failure, of like I don't even want to set a goal because I don't want to have to feel the uncomfortable feelings that may come along with not hitting it.
mm,
And I think that in an instant like that, and maybe later on we can talk about, like, how do you even define what's a worthy vision for
mm,
you? Because whether you fulfill or reach the vision or not, or you hit the goal or not, if you are in love with the idea of the person that you get to become regardless, it's like,
yeah.
why wouldn't you do it? You're going to utilize your time some sort of way anyways.
Yeah.
And we are, human nature, the nature piece, we are set up to be, we are alive just like the trees, the grass, etc. And all nature is always seeking to express greater versions of itself by means of itself. It's
Mm,
wanting to grow. And if we're not growing into something bigger than ourselves, then we're um, starting to not, die is like a heavy word, but would kind of almost like that stalling, that stuckness, it can turn into dis-ease. It can turn into other challenges where that energy is going somewhere in our
yep.
lives, and then eventually we get the wake-up call anyways of trying to get our attention to say, "Hey, there's unlived life here. Wake up and channel your energy somewhere else." So, yeah, the answer is like yes, to that, and I think, a few others when it comes to fear around setting a vision to begin with. One is, fear of what other people are gonna think.
Yeah.
Um, Dreaming too big, that kinda goes with the fear of failure. What if I dream too big and I get let down? Or dreaming too small? What if I set a vision? Am I capping myself
Mm,
of what's actually possible for me? Another one is fear that it's gonna look like the past. Maybe you were committed to creating that relationship that you would really love, and then you got your heart broken and you're like, "I don't know if I wanna go at it again."
yeah.
Um, there's the fear of the how, or just how, getting stuck in the
Yeah.
how. I don't
That's a
know
big
how
one.
to do that. And then one of the probably most powerful ones that I see, especially in leaders, is fear of the responsibility.
Mm.
And a friend and mentor of mine, David Mailer, says sometimes we pretend not to know when really we're afraid of the knowing. And so we just pretend I don't know what my vision is,
Mm.
because we don't want to be put on the line for having to bring it to life.
Yeah. Yeah, what comes up for me is I think one of our greatest fears is to be someone we've never been before, right?
Mm.
And said another way, to do something we've never done before. Like, um, we struggle to see ourselves different. Like we check our I call it rear view mirror syndrome, in my books before, and it's like we check the rear view, it's like, well, have I done that before? Nope. Okay, well, then I don't know what that looks like, so I'm not gonna do it. Right. Or to your point, like fear of the past. Oh, actually, I have tried that before, but I've been undisciplined and I don't follow through. So I'm scared to create a vision that would require me to be disciplined and to follow through. Um,
Mhm.
with that, what would you say to somebody, right? So if someone's telling you that, they're like, "I'm scared because I've never done the thing that a bigger vision would require me to do. I've never been the person that a vision like you're my coach, Jennifer. Like coach me on this, okay? I get what you're saying. You're right. I should have a vision so that it informs what I do now and what I focus on that's in my control. That would serve me as a tool and a strategy. But uh, I'm scared and I don't know what to do. I kind of feel stuck.
Yeah.
How do I overcome that?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, I'll tell just a quick story about, like, my
Okay.
own personal experience
I
in
love
one of
learning
these
through stories.
moments.
Yes.
Yeah. So, in, well, very beginning of 2019, I had, you know, started off the year strong, and I set a new vision for every area of my life. Like, I sat down, spent 3 days, and I built out the vision for my health, my relationships, my business, how I wanted my life to look, and I was in love with this vision. And so I go back to my regular life, and I'm making making the decisions. I'm managing a team. There's a lot of stuff going on, and over the course of 1 week, I have two of my top team members resign. I have my biggest six-figure client, say that they no longer want to work together and they're going to take all of their work in house. I am feeling super burnt out and exhausted, and already like feeling like at my breaking point, spread super thin. And I remember feeling like, okay, everything is starting to crumble around me. I just set this vision, but it seems like chaos has invoked. And I remember I called a mentor of mine, and I think you know her name's Mary Morrissey.
I was actually going to ask you
Brilliant.
about her because I had heard you say in an interview she's a mentor of yours. She was on our podcast and she's amazing. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So she's been, teaching transformation for 40 plus years, and she's just a Jedi. She's in there, just brilliant woman. And I call her and I am freaking out. And I'm like, Mary, I don't know what's happening, but like I set this big vision and it feels like everything, crap is hitting the fan and I don't know what to do. And I'm terrified. And just in this super calm, loving voice, she's like, "Oh, Jennifer, this is just the law of physics at play." She said, "Every time you set a bigger vision for yourself, anything that isn't a vibrational match to that vision is by spiritual law and physics going to come up to be released and transformed."
Hmm.
So she's like, "This is actually good news." Because she said, everything that is coming up is what you need to overcome within yourself in order to become the version of yourself that is a match to that vision. And so she said, you have one of two choices in this moment. Either you can get lost in the circumstance and allow this circumstance to have you and allow this to continue to validate your story of why you aren't capable of this vision and why you don't have what it takes and all of the stories that you've probably been holding on to most of your life. Or you can see that all of this circumstance is simply just the
Situation.
the raw materials required in order to build your vision. Like, this is actually the raw materials that
Mm,
you need. And all of the things that you're bumping up against within yourself and your own identity is the actual materials that you like, or the what you need to be able to overcome yourself. So this
mm.
is all, and she was like, this is all just really good news. And like at the time, I'm gonna be honest, how I'm like, good news. Like, I'm not there yet. Like,
Yeah.
okay, what? But it was the most uh important piece of advice that I've ever received, I would say, because it was in that moment where I got to see, oh, in any moment, I have either a choice of being, when a circumstance happens, to allow the circumstance and just allow it to have me, or to be able to hold the vision. And I still, like, the circumstance is there. I'm not ignoring it,
Mm,
but it's like, can I hold a vision in a future that I can channel my energy into so that I can show up as the person I want to show up as? And I think that's the main point. It's like, what is going to be the most empowering thought? So, for someone who's like, well, I don't know, it's like, there is, in order to have the life that you want to have, you need to overcome parts of yourself.
yeah.
And the only way you're going to know what those parts are is by setting a bigger vision and then seeing what comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, what comes up for me is doing it in writing, right? Like for me, I affirmations are a big part of what I teach, but the way that people have learned them when they hear that word, they're like, "Oh, like pumping yourself up?" No, it's simply putting in writing reminders of what you're focused on, accomplish basically your vision, what you want to accomplish, who you need to become, the truth about who you are, right? Meaning like when I'm writing, I can write like, "Hal, there are no limits to what you can overcome or accomplish." Like intellectually, I understand that, right? So I can write that down. But then when I'm in my own head, in the moment, it's even unconscious. I'm not aware of it, but like an opportunity shows up, a challenge, and the fear base, the child within me, right, is like, oh no, it's like I'm just stunted, but I'm not, I'm consciously or I'm unconsciously incompetent in that moment. But when I read my affirmation every day, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the vision I'm working towards. Oh yeah, I can do anything that I put my mind to at, risk of sounding cliche. And I'm committed every day to taking the next step. And here's the next step, right? So for me, it's having my vision in writing. So I just want to ask you, like, what are the steps to creating a powerful vision? And I know you mentioned in our text message a spiritual vision. I'm actually maybe curious if you want to define what a spiritual vision is, and then whether it's a family vision, a spiritual vision, a business vision, financial,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like, what are the steps to creating a powerful vision?
Mhm. Yeah, and when I say spiritual vision, I think, like, the main piece, I mean, it's like, what is the vision that our higher power wants for us?
Mm,
One of my favorite, stories that I heard years ago that shifted so much for me was, I remember hearing, Oprah do an interview, and she told the story of how when she was a young girl, she would drive through rich neighborhoods, and she saw how some of the richest people had trees in their yards.
mm,
And so there was just a mental footnote that she, as a young girl, said, "One day, maybe, if I will have uh, a home that has trees in my yard." And she was thinking, one, two, three trees.
yeah,
And then that became her focus, and it became it became a reality. But then there was a shift in focus where she started asking herself, what vision do you have for me? And and then being able to hear the response to that, and then her being at one of her many homes where she looked outside of the kitchen window and she saw an entire forest.
mm,
And she said, how often we have the vision for ourselves, but the vision that God has for us is like 100x of what's possible. And
yeah,
so, but I know there's a lot of people who can get caught up being like, okay, well, how do I discover that? And then they just sit idle waiting, for the message to come in. And the truth is that God, source, life force is always speaking to us through signs and signals.
yeah,
And so when it comes to steps, the first step to, look at is what's working and not working in your life.
mm,
And getting really honest with yourself. Uh, Polarity creates clarity. Knowing what you don't want is actually just as valuable as what you do
yeah,
want to begin, to then ask, okay, well, what would I want instead? And I believe in this process, how self-honesty is a prerequisite to clarity.
Mm.
Being the more honest with yourself that you can be, the more clarity that you will be able to receive. So, just starting with, okay, in the domains of my life, health, relationships, business, lifestyle, career, whatever it may be, what do I feel like is working? What's not working?
Let
And
me
that
pause
will,
real quick, Jennifer. I want to invite anyone listening. I do this a lot when I do, whether it's solo episodes,
yeah.
right? Like, I don't want someone to listen to the podcast and then forget it and go, that was awesome, right? So if you're listening to this, like, grab your journal or your phone notes app and write down that first question. What's working and not working in my life? And like Jennifer
Yeah.
said, self honesty is a prerequisite to clarity. If you get clarity for the vision, for that to happen, you've got to start being honest. And what's working? What feels good?
Mhm.
Right? And what's going well in the domains of my life, my health, my relationships, my money, parenting, etc. And what's not going well, like be honest, and that
Mhm.
could also be
Yeah.
done right in rating yourself. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do each of
Yeah.
these areas look? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Like scale of 1 to 10. I like even like a table where you put a line at the top and then down the middle. So there's 2 tables,
Mhm.
working, not working. And then
Mm,
even in the what's not working, you list the different things, but then you ask yourself, okay, what's the opposite of this?
mm,
Because what's the opposite of that is more around what you want.
yeah.
And so, yeah, doing that process will be really insightful to first get clear of like, where am I really at? And then the second step is, asking yourself, and this is something that I learned from Mary, is one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves is, what would I love?
Mm,
Not what should I do? What makes
mm,
sense? What do others want of me? But if we believe that we came from love, right? And then we're eventually gonna go back to love, then
yeah.
that would mean that, we are made of the essence of love.
Mm,
And so if we ask the question, what would I love? Whatever our answer and our genuine answer from our heart comes up, that is spirit seeking to express greater
mm,
versions of itself by
mm,
means of itself through that answer. So that's where I feel like we can get to a lot of the juice of like, what do I really uh, want? What would I really love? And I believe that, it's so powerful to get clear of that personally. So I think so often highly ambitious people will default to like career and business first.
mhm,
But really asking like, what is the life that I would love to live? Like, what does that adventure look like? What would be, do you want to be in a really passionate, loving relationship? Health is, I think, a relative one that most of us want the same things. We want to wake up strong, healthy, energized, go throughout our days with energy, um, vital, that life force running through us, sleeping well,
yeah.
but painting the picture of what it is that you really want. So
I love
that's,
that.
step 2, and I can continue if you want.
Yeah, please. I'm literally doing the exercise list while I'm listening to you.
Love
So,
it. Yeah.
so I've categorized. I got business, finances, health, marriage, parenting. Right, like I've started my
Yep.
categories. So I'm gonna as soon as we're done, I'm gonna actually go through and do this exercise myself. So,
Yes, I love it. So then step 3 is you wanna paint the picture and make it visually concrete. And this
mm,
is where I say, in the vision work that I do, a lot of people will get caught up because 'cause they'll use very, subjective, general language. Like, "I want to feel awesome. I
mm,
want to feel great." And we so we have our conscious mind and then our subconscious mind. 95% of our decisions are coming from our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind operates in pictures plus emotions. Pictures plus emotions equals stories. And so this is the part of our brain that is actually working 24/7 to find the opportunities and situations that are a match to our vision. It's kind of like the science behind law of attraction. There's the spiritual essence of it, but then also just how our brains work is we're looking for patterns. And so if we tell our brain look for this pattern, look for this opportunity, it will start to look for it.
Yeah.
So the more that you can paint the picture of what that vision looks like, make it objective, the more you're going to be priming this part of your brain to be seeking things that are a match to that. So, for example, instead of saying, I feel awesome, it may look like, I, or let me think of a particular painting the picture. Um, when I'm supporting businesses with this, they'll sometimes team like, "Our team is great." I'm like, "What would be, like, moments in time if I was a fly on the wall seeing how your team was interacting, how would I know?" And it's like, when our team is, um, collaborating together, there's a lot of questions. Each person is curious, they're asking each other things, they're respectful, and when they're coming up with a solution, they're taking a step back and looking for what is the highest best solution here versus trying to be right. And so that's almost like if you were to go into that moment in the story, you can see it unfolding and be like, "Oh yeah, there it is. It's happening." So how can you make it really concrete,
Mm.
where you or someone else would be seeing your vision in action and you're like, "It's happening."
Yeah, let me share an example. And I'm listening to Ben Hardy's new audiobook,
Oh yeah.
Scaling, right? Are
Yep.
you listening to that yet?
I've read a few chapters in it
Okay,
so
yeah.
far,
I don't think
which
it's
so
officially
good.
out yet. He's got like the advanced whatever. Anyway,
The Dolly.
but
Yep.
he talks about setting your impossible goal, right? And which is just, your I mean, many names for that. I called it the measurable miracle in miracle equation, so it's like you call it what you want. It's the goal that's so big that it stretches you. And I think about everything that you're saying. What came up for me personally is when I realized that the miracle morning was a concept that would impact people, and I decided to write the book. That was the first impossible goal because I'm like, writing a book is took 3 years. Finally got it done. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, the book's done. Now I feel like it's my responsibility to get this in the hands of as many people as I can. So I just picked the arbitrary big number, which is like, okay, 1 million. I'm going to change 1 million lives one morning at a time. And I set my vision. My vivid vision was to get the book in the hands of 1 million people. And in year one, I committed to do everything in my power to get the book sell 1 million copies of that book. I was on 150 podcasts. I was on a dozen plus television interviews. I did everything. I was on social media every day, everything I could. And I sold 13,000 copies out of the million that year. So I was 987,000 copies short of the vision, right? But what it did is it informed my daily behavior and my decisions and my excitement and right all of that. And so why I want to share this story is it's such a real example of overcoming that fear. Like how would I get to 1 million? I had no idea. I just needed a target to shoot for. And then after year one, was I discouraged? Like, sure. I'm like, I was 98.7% short of my goal. That's like about as fail, you can't fail much worse than that. I'm like, all right, like dust myself off. Obviously, 1 year was not a realistic time frame. So I'm going to try again year two. And year two, I sold 23,000 copies, right? It's like, okay, that's better, but I'm still like 97% away or whatever, right? And I just kept trying and trying and trying. And the vision did not change. It continued to, as you talk about, pull me toward that predetermined vision that was, as Ben Hardy would say, an impossible goal.
Mhm.
But it was like in year two, I met an agent at this one dinner, and then she got Miracle Morning Translate. Like it all happened in, they say, in God's perfect timing. But if I had not overcome my fear, and I won't say I overcame it, it was just I did the thing I was afraid of, which is create a vision that I didn't know how to accomplish. If I hadn't have done that, and this is for everyone listening, right? Like if I hadn't have done that, it wouldn't have kept pulling me toward it. And then in year two and year three and year four, as I failed to reach the vision again and again and again and again, but I inched closer and closer. And it took 6 years to sell 1 million copies of the Miracle Morning. And when I got to that point, it was like, oh, I couldn't have done it in a year. Like I had to meet
Mhm.
that person in year two that led to the opportunity in year three that led to the result in year four, right? But it all started with everything, Jennifer, that you are talking about right now. which is sitting
Mm,
down, applying the steps that you are talking about. And I'll say step one, in writing, everyone listening, what's working and not working in your life. As Jennifer said, self honesty is a prerequisite to clarity. Step two, what would I love? As her mentor, Mary Morrissey, taught her, what would I love? Not what should I do? Not what
right.
am I supposed to do? Not what does everybody else want me to do? What have I done before? What would I love? In the areas of your life that matter, and then painting that picture and creating that vivid vision. For me, it was change 1 million lives one morning at a time. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll turn it back over to you to continue with the steps, is the wording matters. If I would have said sell 1 million copies of the Miracle Morning, I do not think that would have inspired me. I think I would have actually had all sorts of unconscious judgment of myself, that I'm selfishly trying to sell 1 million books, that that it feels icky, and right. But it was change 1 million lives one morning at a time, and that was genuinely what I was trying to do. And it tapped into my selflessness, which for me, like, I'm more motivated if I'm don't feel like I'm doing this selfishly. Yeah, so the wording, also wording it in a way that inspires you. Are there more
Yes,
steps beyond those three?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah, and just on the third one, an
Mm,
example that I love to provide to your point of the words is when John F. Kennedy stood at the podium, uh, and said, "We're gonna put a man on the moon by the end of the decade." That was the vivid vision, that was literally the moonshot.
yeah,
But he did not say, "We are trying to advance the space race," or,
and
"We
beat
want to
Russia.
become number 1," yeah, in
Yeah.
the world. He chose to paint the picture and make a visually concrete moment in time to where everybody would know the vision has become a reality, and that vision galvanized, uh, janitors to astronauts to millions of people around the world to rally around that one vision. So to your point, the language very much matters.
Mm.
And so then that goes to number 4, which you touched on, how, which is suspending the how for right now. The
Mm,
how, and it's gonna be so normal and so natural to be like, "How am I gonna make this happen?" Right? And so a short story on this was back in I think 2015, I had crafted a vision for um, one of my companies at the time, and it was called Conscious Copy.
yeah.
And at that point in time, I was bootstrapping my little business. I was the team of one. I was completely unknown in the space. And I had this dream to work with some of the top personal development leaders in the world. I wanted to support them with their marketing and their messaging because so many of the personal development space had transformed my life, and I'm like,
Mm,
how cool would it be to be able to serve some of my heroes and be able to help their messages get out in a bigger way? And I had no idea how I was going to how
yeah.
that was going to happen. I didn't know or have contacts in the space or anything yet. But I had crafted my vision and I was looking at it every single day and I felt really connected to it. And then out of the blue, a couple weeks later, I had a friend of mine reach out to me and invite me to, or actually asked to be on a little podcast I had at the time that really didn't have many followers or anything like
Yeah.
that. It was very small, but she said, "I'd love to be on your podcast." She said, "I'm going to be at my friend's place in Phoenix, Arizona." That's where I was living at the time. She said, "Let's do it there." And so I said, "Great." So she sends me the uh, GPS address. I pull up. Oh, this is an important detail.
Mm,
In that vision, I had also done the vision for other areas of my life. And one of the things I put on my personal vision was this beautiful home. And it was this home in Paradise Valley on Camelback Mountain. And I was like, that would be so cool to have a home like that one day because then I could hike Camelback Mountain every day. And it was beautiful. So I just put it on, didn't think much of it.
yeah.
So I pull up to this house for this podcast episode, and I'm scratching my head, and I'm like, "This looks so familiar." I don't know what, but I was like, "Have I been to this home?" No. And I go up to the front door, she lets me in. I walk into the living room, and my jaw just drops. And there's a guy sitting on the couch, and my face turned white as a ghost, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "This is my house." And he was like,
Uh,
"Excuse me?" And I was like, "This is my house." And he was like, "No, this is
Yeah.
actually my house." And we have this weird exchange where then I show him the photo of my vivid vision, and I point to the house. I'm like, "This is my home," and it was the exact photo of the living room, even to the exact same furniture was in there,
No way.
decorations, everything. Like, there was a particular art piece that was in that home that was in my photo,
Whoa.
and he was like, "Where did you get that photo?" I'm like, "Zillow." And he's like, "No way." And he was like, "This is
Wow.
your home." It turns out the guy was Joe Polish.
Okay, I was wondering, yeah. I've
Yeah,
been in that
and
house before, sure.
yeah, and I walked into that home and, uh, it turned out to be his home. I had never met him before, and we had connected. He, really, became a mentor of mine, a dear
Yeah.
friend. Ultimately, many introduced me to many people in the personal development space, and, like, fast forward, it was less than 18 months, and most of that vivid vision that I had created had come true,
Mm.
and I had no idea how I was going to meet those people, and so just a reminder of really suspending the how
Yeah.
at first. Like, you don't need to know every single step for the vision to come to life.
And that's so important to give people for permission for that, because that's part of what creates the fear. I do
Yeah.
not know how to become a millionaire. I do not know how to become a blank or accomplish a blank, right?
Mhm.
So important. I
Yeah.
love, yeah,
Yeah.
I love that story.
And then step 5 is just who do you need to become to bring the vision forth?
Mm,
Again, it goes back to that, that idea of it's a psychological tool. And so as soon as you map out the vision, yeah, I love the quote Wallace Wattles, by thought, the thing that you want comes to you, but by action, you receive it. And
mhm,
so, who do I need to become? How do I need to show up in order to be a match to that vision? That is the ultimate accelerator to bringing the vision to life that I think a lot of people miss. They just think, what do I need to do? But it's like in my even own behavior. For example, one of my visions, and I had had a belief for a long time I wasn't a good leader. And I'm like, okay,
mm,
well, if I was a good leader, how would I show up? How would I engage with my team? How would I what are the actions I would take, but what are the types of beliefs? And I modeled and saw people who I thought were extraordinary leaders. And I was like, okay, how can I just start showing up as that, making decisions as that, actions as that. And I think yeah, that's one of the most important pieces to really tie it all together,
mhm,
because we don't go to our vision, we come from it. It isn't something out there one day, someday we arrive to. It's like every moment, every decision, we're either coming from vision or we're coming from condition.
mm. I love that paradigm right there. We don't how did you say it?
And so the quote is, and credit Mary Morrissey, we don't go to our vision, we come from our vision.
I'm gonna write that. We don't go to our vision. We
Yeah.
come from our vision. And so hey, for those that don't know, Cameron Harold is who you're partnered with in Vivid Vision, and Cameron is the co-author of the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
So that's another connection that we have, right? And I met you through Joe Polish, actually. I think that's how we connected initially. So
Mhm.
very cool.
Yeah.
Um, all right, I want to just recap the steps again. Step one, everyone listening, right? Do the exercise, create the vision, right? And this is a rough draft. You're not creating a perfect vision that you're going to present to anyone in a, like in public. This is just in your journal, on your computer. What's working and what's not working. Start there, because, as Jennifer said, self honesty is a prerequisite to clarity. Step two, what would I love from Mary Morrissey? Not what should I do, what would I love? What would feel really good? Number three, paint the picture and create the vivid vision. What specifically is that going to look like? Number four, suspend how for now. I love that. Yeah, when I set the goal to change 1 million lives, I had zero idea of how I'd reach 1 million people. And the way that it worked out is that's the interesting thing too, right? Like how it worked out. I'm like, I couldn't have planned that. I didn't know I'd meet that person that would become get me to with foreign publisher. Like I had no idea, right? You didn't know you would freaking get invited to and see Joe Polish sitting on a couch, who's great, arguably one of the most connected human beings on the planet. And then he would take a liking to you. And then he would introduce you to all sorts of folks who would become your dream clients, right? Like just amazing. But it started with the vision. And step five, in writing, y'all, put this in writing. Who do you need to become? And how do you need to show up to bring that vision to life? So important. Jennifer, anything else to share before we wrap? Any Anything else?
I think the final piece, in tying it back to the beginning is number 1, if if you're listening and you're in a transition, this can be one of the most fruitful, a defining moment in your life where you're going to claim a future that is bigger than your past. And so it starts with a decision. And then the second piece, when it comes to a spiritual vision, is recognizing you don't have to do this all yourself. Part of this too is partnering with your higher power, whatever word phrase you use, your divinity
Yeah.
in being able to bring this forth. Because if you know exactly how it's all going to happen, it's actually a plan, not a vision. The mere fact that you don't know how and it's bigger than you and it's going to
Yeah.
cause you to grow
Mm,
defines it to be a vision. And just recognizing you don't have to do it all by yourself.
I love it.
So
Yeah,
those are
and
the
you
2
you
final
you won't do
pieces.
it by yourself. You can't do it by yourself, and
Yeah.
you might not yet know the people. You didn't know Joe Polish. I didn't know my agent Celeste Fine, right? And so many others. You might not even know the people right now that are going to help you get to the vision, but you've got to create the vision. And it almost is, I'm a very you are too. I know being a business person, right? Writing the line between like practical and spiritual, right? Like the woo woo and the concrete. And it's like, for me, and I think sometimes the practical and the concrete, it prevents us from accessing the spiritual aspect that it's hard to explain, it's hard to define, it's hard to see. It's just that you know it because you've had it happen, right? Like when you go, oh, wow, there's such a spiritual component of how this person came into my life at the right time and creating that vision. I love the way you defined, like I asked, what's a spiritual vision? Because when you first text that, I actually in my mind, I'm like, oh, she's gonna create us how to create a vision for our spirituality. That's cool. That'll be cool, right? But it's like, no, no, no. A spiritual vision, it could be for your business, for your marriage, for your kids, for your well, right, for
All of
yourself,
it.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's all spiritual when it's coming from a divine place, a place of connecting with God, source, spirit, higher intelligence, right? And then through that spiritual lens and energy and space and way of being, that's where the miracles are created, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, and that partnership. Because, like, even
Mm,
for example, recently there was something that just a little project that has brought me so much. There's a lot of juice and energy there. I'm like, "Huh, okay, is this something I'm supposed to kinda pursue and look into?" And so, in those moments, sometimes I'm just like, "Okay, God, give me a clear, definite sign that I
yeah,
cannot miss if
yeah,
I'm intended to just keep exploring this path, and it's both that and then noticing my energy. Does it bring me to life? And
yeah.
and then I do think it's important to discern though. I say when opportunities are aligned to the vision or when they're seductive distractions.
Mm,
So important. And
yeah,
so is it aligned to the vision?
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
going.
Exactly. Yeah, seductive
Yeah.
distractions, it's such a good point, like, when people would reach out and ask, "Hey, do you want check out this great project I have for you," and I'm like, "Oh, does that help me change 1,000,000 lives one morning at a time?" And that started to make things, "Oh, actually right now it's a no because I would be if I said yes to you, I'd be saying no to a part of the vision that I'm committed to, and I've gotta stay on track." And they're like, "Wow, I respect that. That's cool," you know?
That's
Um
exactly it.
Jennifer, where's the best place for people to work with you, learn from you, follow you, continue to get your wisdom?
Yeah, you can connect on Instagram. It's just at Jen Hudye, JENNHUDYE. And then you can check out our site, which is visiondrivenglobal.com.
Amazing. Visiondrivenglobal.com. Well, Jen, I have so much love for you and even more after
Mm.
we get to spend this time together. So thank you so
Likewise.
much for today.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
All right. And goal achievers and members of the Miracle Morning community, I love you so much. Thank you for tuning in. And make sure you take the time, if you need to re listen to the episode, follow those steps that Jen gave and create your vivid vision from which to live from and allow it to pull you forward to the best version of yourself and create the best life that you deserve. I will talk to you next week.